Welcome to the Better Student Ministry Podcast, where we take a deep dive into practical youth ministry topics to help you and your team become better at what God has called you to do. We're joined now by your hosts, Mark and Jared, who together have over 30 years of youth ministry experience.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Better Student Ministry Podcast. My name's Jared.
My name's Mark.
That's Mark. He's looking handsome today. Beard is nicely trimmed. He's wearing a flannel. You guys can't see him, but I'm going to explain to you. Nice red flannel. If you didn't ever see what a lumberjack looked like, that's what he looks like right now.
Yep.
A handsome lumberjack.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you've never seen what a homeless person looks like, he's sitting right across the seat from me.
That's true. Thank you, and thank you for that. Yeah, but it's good to be back, man. I love doing these podcasts with you, and if you're new to the podcast, we've got a bunch that we've released, so feel free to go back and check them out, and some great conversations with people. And we've got another great one today with our good buddy Jordan Hilkey.
Yeah.
So Jordan, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be back. I can't believe you would have me back. So I don't know who paid you. Maybe my mom.
Yeah. We weren't going to do it, but then she emailed us and then PayPal both of us. So
yeah, she always told me growing up I had a face for radio, and
oh, sweet lady.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, yeah. we appreciate you being back on with us, man. And if you didn't know, Jordan is a youth pastor out in Buffalo, New York area. He's been in youth ministry for 7 years, married as well with 2 kids, and this is now his second church he's serving at. So he's got a variety of experience in leading leaders, both in youth ministry and college ministry. And so we're excited to have you back on. And today we want to talk a little bit about the idea of empowering leadership, but really focus on the idea of creating a culture in youth ministry where you're releasing your leaders to lead. And today we're not really going to be speaking as much to student leaders, but really adult leaders. How do you, as a youth pastor or the primary youth leader, empower your leadership team, your adult leaders, and release those leaders to really lead? And I want to start off by asking you guys, explain to me, I know we all feel like this is a really important conversation, and I want to hear from you, like the difference in ministries that you've seen or experienced. We can all probably relate to the difference between a ministry where youth leaders are really empowered and released to lead versus ones where they're not. And I'd love to hear, maybe Jordan, start us off. Like, what's kind of been your observation as you've experienced those two different paradigms?
Yeah. So we don't believe in babysitters, is what I tell every one of my potential leaders when we have conversations about them stepping into leadership. And we just recently talked about empowering our students and how our leaders are such a great part of, identifying leaders and empowering leaders amongst our students. But I think what's really important is if we're not imparting that DNA on our own leadership, then they're not going to know what to look for. And so, I think it's if you get a babysitter, someone who's just like, hey man, just come in on Wednesdays, make sure kids don't kill themselves or kill each other, and that's the end of your responsibility, then, that's not leadership, and it's not going to lead to your students being benefited either. So it's really important, I think, for us to look for people that have those skills, that can employ those skills. And then, because those are the people that are pouring into your students. So if you've got somebody that's just coming in and checking the box and running out the clock of their hey, I volunteered, I get my sticker badge, you're going to have kids that are going to come in on a Wednesday night, just do their time and get their sticker too. But if you employ leaders on your team that are empowered and that have those qualities inside of them, and you're investing into them, they're in turn going to naturally turn and do that into your students as well.
Yeah. I over my oh man, I don't even remember the number. Over my 16 years of youth ministry experience, I've worked with probably at least 100 different youth leaders over that time, and in a number of different capacities. And I think one of the things that was really important for me to remember too is just like our students, all of those leaders are coming in at different points in their leadership journey as well.
Yeah.
And as much as as much as we were focused on inviting our students to next level leadership stuff, the same can be true for your volunteer team as well. Recognizing where they're at. Now, I'm sure you got to consider there's some prerequisites to leadership in general, especially when it's working with minors. But recognizing where they're at as a leader and constantly be inviting them to next level leadership stuff. So I think for a youth group to work really well, you need all kinds of leaders, just like in any group. I think the more variety, the better. And some of that variety does incorporate different leaders at different levels. And I'll be honest, there were seasons of time where I had leaders on my youth staff that their being present was really more a benefit to them than it was to me or our team. Not that they were negatively impacting the group, but I recognize my investment in them right now as a leader is for their benefit that ultimately will be for the group's benefit. Yeah. But I'm okay with sharing life with them right now, encouraging them, pressing them along. And I would build in certain structures. Like if I knew they were going to be a disaster in a small group, they would never lead one by themselves. They would come along with somebody. But I recognized sometimes in the leaders that I was sharing life with, it was as much a benefit to them as a human being, as a leader, and encouraging them to the next level, seeing the potential that was in them, and I was okay with that. And honestly, I would have that conversation sometimes with my top tier leaders that were like, "What in the world is so and so doing here? And do you understand what they're doing? And do you see?" And it was a good teaching moment for them as well. Like, hey, you're going to have to work with leaders that haven't arrived yet, and being able to. Just as important as it is for me to know where our students are in their journey, I got to know where our leaders are in their leadership journey as well.
So this brings up a big point that I think is really important for us to wrestle through is, as a youth pastor or a youth leader, primary youth leader, how much of your time is spent investing in students versus how much of your time is spent investing in leaders? Because there's different perspectives and philosophies on this, right? And I've seen guys and girls, youth ministries who spend no time investing in leaders, all their time with students, and I've seen maybe the opposite. So I'm interested to hear from you guys. What was your perspective on that? Is there a sweet spot? Is there a balance? Does it depend? What do you guys think? Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, honestly, I spend most of my time with my leadership team, cultivated their leadership as opposed to students. It's probably like 70-30, I would say. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what we've done. And I guess my thought process behind why was, first of all, there's a lot of turnover. I try to keep invested in my leaders and keep them there long term. And, students graduate and some leave and all, and that's not a reason to not invest in them. But I'm just saying, that's through my thought process. But also the big thing for us is, I've always been told, kind of growing up, it's somebody said it, somebody important, who knows? But they talking about the importance of, a healthy ministry is going to survive even when you're gone, right? And so for me, it's like, I have no intention of leaving or anything like that, but
Wow, are you
breaking that? Breaking news, folks!
Breaking that news right now on this podcast.
Your dad's like, "What the world?"
But there could be a situation where I'm out of town, I'm on vacation, whatever.
Yeah.
Our ministry still needs to run.
It's good.
And so I think it's really important that our leadership team is strong in order to handle the load of what we're doing, because kids are coming in to be ministered to, man.
Yeah.
And I want the foundation that's here to be strong, the foundation, the net that's here to be strong, to really be doing that investment into the kids, honestly, more than me at times. And I'm not saying, but like, as we spread across, like, hey man, honestly, I'm not going to have a great connection with every middle school girl. I'm a 27-year-old dude that, but this female leader over here who's in college, or this young mom over here, like, she has things to talk with her about. She's got more life experience when it comes to being a female, which I have none. And so, it's just being able to empower them so they can step into the spots that I'm not able to fill. Because early in my leadership journey, it was about me filling all those spots, and I felt I came up short. And so I felt empowering my leadership team was more important than me doing all of the student leadership empowerment and allowing them to then live that out and empowering them themselves. So,
yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think I think obviously, as you identified, the multiplication process I think is much more successful when you're investing in your team and your leaders, and it's also important to keep in mind what it is that you're multiplying. Right, one of the things I was always really cautious of. I love you brought up the point, like when you're not there, like if you're on vacation or if you're on a retreat or if you're leaving somewhere and the group doesn't have to hit the pause button when you're not there. You've got leaders who understand the values, understand the mission, and understand what needs to take place to have a successful group. So I was always really cautious. Like, I don't need more of me. I need more leaders who represent Christ, right? And hopefully I'm representing Christ as well. But so like one of the things I was really, really intentional about cultivating is I'm not trying to reproduce myself. I'm trying to draw out the best of your individual personalities, your individual leadership skills and gifts as Christ has created them in you. And so the last thing I wanted when I transitioned out of youth ministry for 13 years is everyone trying to replicate what Mark had done for the last decade. First of all, it's going to be a massive failure because no one can replicate me. I am an individual.
True.
but
and a strange one at that.
But secondly, then they're not going to be operating out of their gifts. They're not. I believe God raises raises up leaders at the right time and transitions out leaders at the right time. And so by helping them see what unique gifts Christ has given them, and them leading out of those strengths, then I think is overall a benefit to our team. And I wanted to make sure I wasn't just reproducing me. You don't have to think the same exact way I do. In fact, it's a benefit to our whole team that you don't think the same way I do, and you don't have to run an event the same way I run an event. But these are the non-negotiables as it relates to how we love students and how we have relationship with people and interact with each other and talk with each other and those sorts of things. So,
yeah, I love both of you guys' points. I think they're so right on. And one of my experience in youth ministry was I started out at a small church where we basically were starting a youth ministry from scratch. And so it was a small youth ministry, and then I served there for 4 years, and then for 8 years I served at a large church with a 100-person youth ministry. And one of the things I really realized is as the size of your ministry grows, the scope of your leadership changes. What you do changes. And I think one of you guys referenced this, or maybe it was both of you, but if you have just a handful of kids and you're part of a really small youth ministry, then the time that you're spending with students may be a little bit more because maybe you don't have the leadership team that you want. However, here's my caution is, because I've talked to guys who are a part of a small youth ministry, and because they can kind of manage all the relationships with students, they do, and then they say, like, yeah, I just can't get anyone to lead. I don't have a leadership team. And so they stop trying to invest and find and grow leaders because at that point they can kind of manage all the students. And the problem with that is it's so short-sighted.
Yeah.
Because number one, to your point, Mark, those students are missing out because they're not getting the benefit of multiple leadership personalities and giftings and all that kind of stuff. But as your ministry grows and as more students come in, you won't be able to grow healthily without the leaders to support that growth. So even if you don't have any leaders right now, you've got to designate part of your time to recruiting and developing leaders so that in the future, when you can't manage all the students, you have the support there.
Yeah. And regardless of the age of the leader, my guess is you're going to have a variety of ages in your group, or maybe I should suggest you do have a variety of ages in your group. Also keep in mind, age is not a differentiator when it comes to your investment in a student's life. So a young, fresh out of college, 20 something year old that's got a more senior team, like if they've got some older members on their team, your responsibility is still to decipher them, to nurture them. And there's a lot that you can contribute to them, and in the same way that they can speak into your life as well. So don't think to yourself, well, they're twice my age, and what do I have to share with them? You've got to see yourself as the God-appointed leader of that group with the vision that God has given you for that group, and then you got to lead. You just got to lead. You got to be ready to lead.
Yeah. So to start, as we're starting off, and I know we're already 50 minutes in, but here's what I want you to hear if you're a primary youth leader from all three of us is a priority for you has to be developing and empowering leaders.
Yeah.
Students are important. That's why you're doing it. The temptation is to think, I'm the best person at hanging out with students and pouring into them, and that may be true, but don't be short-sighted in your leadership.
Yeah.
You've got to spend time intentionally at empowering, developing, and releasing leaders. So before we move on, here's my question for you guys. Why is that difficult? What potentially gets in the way of us doing that as a youth pastor? So if someone's listening to this, what are some of the things that say, here's why it could be difficult to release leaders to lead outside of you, or to really empower leadership? Because really what that means is, right, you're handing over leadership that you have, and you're giving it to somebody else. You're giving your leadership away to somebody else. Yeah. Why can that be difficult?
Jordan, you want to take this first, or you want me to go?
So I think one of the difficulties is we have our vision of what we want it to look like and what we want it to be. And I get pushback from people that don't think like me. And at times that can be frustrating, but it's really, really healthy and really, really good. Because, ultimately, as much as I believe as a youth pastor, it's about my vision, and it's about, that's actually changed. It's about our collective vision as a team. And I think it's really healthy to have other perspectives pouring into that vision. And then when they're a part of that process, they have more ownership in it, and they're actually going to give more, because they're not just serving a vision that maybe they're not even, I just came into this. Like, no, I'm actually a part of this. I actually was pouring into that because I believe in that too. And I'm going to pour more of myself into that because I was a part of the process and putting this together. And so, but it can be a challenge because, I've got my stuff, I got what I want to do and how I want to do it. And maybe this person's going to do it a little bit different. And I'd like to encourage anyone out there, maybe it doesn't look like it's going to work at first, but, give people a shot, give people the opportunity to take the ball and try to go about things in a different direction, because that's healthy and really good leadership.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I made the most mistakes on was coming in to rescue too early. So I would assign responsibilities, or I would assign tasks, and in my head I'm like, okay, I've done this for almost 2 decades. I've got really efficient ways that I do things. I can troubleshoot things on the fly because I've seen it so many different times. But I'll give somebody else responsibility to do it. And either they won't do it exactly the same way, or I begin to see them executing something that I know is going to create an issue. And so my default mode, in my genuine desire to help them, my default mode is to kind of swoop in and try to rescue this situation or save them. And in doing so, I'm short-circuiting their leadership. I think because, and I have to remind myself, I learned how to do it this way because of all the mistakes that I made earlier. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to let somebody make a mistake that is detrimental to a relationship or detrimental to a life in our group, or will ruin anything else that we have planned for the time. But it's okay for something to be a little bit of a flop. Like if the environment is such that we genuinely all care for each other, students and leaders, then it's okay to have a crappy night, and then to be able to talk to my leader and be like, all right, let's debrief this. Things didn't go well. Maybe you weren't prepared enough, or obviously you didn't think about this element, or you weren't willing to adapt and change, after you tried something. And my intention is always good to rescue them, to save them from the pain. But what I end up doing is, if I do that frequently enough, not only am I short-circuiting the situation, but I'm almost building a reflex in my leader to think Mark's going to come in and save this and rescue it anyways. And it begins to deflate how much they actually invest if I'm like, well, that was a one way of doing it, but this is the way you should be doing it. Right. And in doing so, I'm discouraging them from actually leading and taking opportunities.
Isn't that also not really delegating authority?
Sure.
Right? You're just delegating a task.
Right.
But authority is, I'm not going to rescue you. Like ultimately, this is up to you.
Yeah.
And like you said, you have to have wisdom in that. But if every time you rescue someone, then you're just delegating a task that as soon as they start messing it up,
Yep.
you'll come in, and they won't have the same level of ownership, nor will they actually grow from that.
Sure.
To your point, So Jordan, I'd love to hear from you. What are some things that you've done over the years of youth ministry? Are there any strategies that you've employed, or any kind of specific systems that you've set up in order to help you develop your leaders better?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, I mean, leadership development, I think, comes in many forms. I think, first of all, resourcing. One of the things I do, I'm one of those guys that every time I say this to other youth pastors, they're like, oh my gosh. I send out a weekly email to all my leaders, and I send out a parent email every week. But in the leader email, I always give them a resource for development. So it's a podcast. I've taken a couple of these and sent them out to them. Maybe just other leadership YouTube video links or articles, and so I send those out to them. Also, just meeting with them and having times where that's the goal. So we have meetings where we strategize, we have meetings where we're just hanging out, and we have meetings where, hey, I want to cultivate your leadership skills and invest into you guys. And then we got Boost Weekend coming up, so that's another little thing we like to do. So like little leadership events that we'll do together it has been really fruitful for us. But also, I think one of the big things, Jared, is really giving them opportunities. And this is one thing that I started, about 2.5 years ago, and I didn't think it would work. And honestly, I people might even disagree with it, but I've seen a lot of fruit of it in my ministry and wanted to share it with everybody. We were talking one day, and I just thought, we were kind of evaluating our communication, so like our messages on Wednesday nights, and I'm just thinking, it's a lot to say to a leader, hey, I would love for you to share on a Wednesday night or whenever your youth services. I want you to share. That's a big burden, especially for people that don't have a lot of training, and for people that maybe it's their first time. Like, that's a big ask. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but that is a big ask to put someone in that spot. And there's a very small pool of my leadership that I feel like I can ask to do that. The ones that are outgoing, the ones that I feel like can communicate well. And so I thought, I want to think of a way that I can empower more leaders to do this. So what we did was, and again, it's a pretty radical idea. I know not a lot of people would really be on board for this, but we actually changed our communication strategy on Wednesday nights and tried it for a season, and it went so well that this is now what we do exclusively going forward. I don't preach on Wednesday nights. What we do is we actually have panels every Wednesday night instead. And the reason why I think this is so valuable is, first of all, our students, they sit in a lecture format at school for 8 hours a day. To expect them to now come in on a Wednesday night and sit through another 20-minute, 15-minute, half an hour lecture, whatever, it's a big ask. It's a really big ask. But I also felt like I can empower every single leader on my team with this format. So that what we do is I come up with a monthly panel schedule, and we rotate different leaders onto the panel every single week. So every single leader on my team communicates to the room from the front once a month. Now, cool. The nice thing about the panel is the burden is not fully on them. Like, they don't have to prepare a whole message. What it looks like is whoever's on the panel that week, I meet with them the week before. So it's a Thursday. So from now until next Wednesday, I'll text the two people that are on the panel this week, and I'll say, hey, when's a good time for you both to meet? So that's really cool for me as a youth pastor, because it gives me one-on-one time with every single person on my team once a month. Yes, we're doing it for panels, but it's also just a really good rhythm to make sure I'm connecting with them on a personal level. So that's been a really cool side benefit. It's also really cool because I'm teaching them how to communicate in those moments. There's a lot of good coaching moments for teaching them how to communicate. But also, they're not on their own. I can step in at any time and rescue them. If we're up there on the panel and it starts going off, I can step in at any moment. But it's really cool for our kids, because our kids, here's the thing about kids, man, they all connect with somebody differently. So I might not have a good connection with a more introverted boy that is interested in art. And, like for me, that's not me. But I have a guy on my team that's like that, and he connects with him really, really well. Or maybe a junior high girl or a senior high girl that, she sees another one of my female leaders up there who shares a story about her time when she was in ninth grade, when she was involved with the play. And so it gives our students an opportunity to hear from different voices every single week and every single month. So I just love it. I love that we do it. It's really cool to see because our leaders now own those moments. And they're not huge asks, but they're also very challenging, and they give me a lot of time and opportunity to invest into them. And it gives our students a different flavor every single week.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I think just changing up the voice sometimes, even if you've heard the same thing a dozen times, if you hear it from a different voice, it's got some unique power to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I really, my goal in our youth team was that the group of people we were serving with and whatever the season was would be the closest people in our life. My goal was that we would be for one another the first ones we would go to when we had a need, the first one we would go to when we're celebrating, the first one we would go to when we're grieving in our life. Like it was almost like it almost had like the closeness that I think sometimes like military groups have together, like we ride and die together, and by creating that closeness, by creating that bond, I think it exponentially impacted how long a leader is invested in serving, and the intimacy that we had with one another allowed us to execute so flawlessly in whatever environment we found ourselves in. So in order to do that, though, it takes time. We had staff meetings every other week, and we had them we had them in our house because we wanted people in our house. We wanted them interacting with us. We would eat. We would make dinner. We would share a meal with them. We would do training together. We would always focus on spiritual stuff, whatever's going on in our lives. We would focus on the lives of our students. And then out of respect for everyone's schedules, we had an official start and stop time for those meetings. But then our home was always open for the remainder of that evening. So those that were like, okay, our official meeting time, like I wouldn't say, okay, maybe sometimes I would. Our official meeting time is done now. If you need to go, you can go. But leaders always knew they could stick around and chat with us and talk with us. And if there was an issue going on in their life, it was the first text group they went to. Hey, pray for me right now. This is what's going on. And if something great happened in their lives, we were the first to celebrate with each other. When my wife and I, when we lost our youngest daughter, like those were the people that we clung to for strength more than anybody else. Sometimes even closer than family. Sometimes just because we spent more time with them than we did others. Along with that, though, comes this tension of, so because I was in youth ministry for so long, there were several times when, I know this is not exactly what this topic is talking about in releasing leaders, but there were times when leaders that grew up through the youth ministry with me were released from our group to go lead other ministries, other youth ministries, pursuing other ministry calls in their lives. And there was this tension in me of, I don't want them to go. I want them to stay seeing leaders off was gutting for me because we were so close, and it would break my heart. There's numerous times there was a mixture of tears of pain and tears of celebration for leaders that had an opportunity to go serve in youth ministry somewhere. And in the grand scheme of things, it was like one of the greatest compliments that sharing life with them could be, is to release them to go lead their own groups. Right. But at the same time, I was like, I don't want them to leave. I want them to stay here with me because they're a phenomenal leader, and I want to continue to share life with them. And I knew, because I'd done it long enough, you always have that conversation of like, we'll still stay close, and we're never going to lose relationship. And there is a sliver of that that's true. Yes, we're close. We still interact with each other, but we don't spend hours and hours together during a week, shoulder to shoulder, serving together. So that relationship just isn't the same. And so if it's done right, you're releasing leaders to do stuff within your group, but a lot of times you're releasing them to go and fulfill God's plan for their life. And the last thing I want to do is to be a breaker in them pursuing everything God has, because selfishly I don't want them to go anywhere. And I've had to deal with that struggle several times.
Yeah, I think that's really wise. That takes the perspective of they're not here just to do a task for me, right?
Yeah.
But I'm here to help them be the person God wants them to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means cutting them loose
Yeah.
and letting them go. And I think that's a really healthy perspective. We're coming down towards the end of our time, but I thought I had an idea. I haven't prepared either one of you for this, but I think it can be fun. We're going to go around. I'll start so you guys can think. We're going to talk about, you got to give either your best idea or your worst idea. Okay, and try to make it something practical in regards to leadership development. So best idea, worst idea. I'm gonna do my best idea, or at least one of my best ideas, and I'll try to make this super practical when it comes to developing leaders. Is in the context of this, ministry is not a 9-to-5, and in the context of what Mark just shared and Jordan shared about giving your life to people, living life with people. One of the best ideas that I had is, I designated myself to say, after youth group, and maybe this depends on your culture, but for us, we had a culture where youth leaders wanted to still hang out after youth service. So the kids all left. The kids, they all went home. Their parents picked them up, whatever. And, I was older than our youth leaders, but they all wanted to go out to eat. They all wanted to hang out. And it would have been easy for me to go, no, guys, I'm good. I'm going to just head home. And there was times I did that, but I really tried to say, no. Part of my responsibility, and this is, again, a lot of nights is after preaching. It's after, youth pastors, a youth group day is an all day event. But I was like, no, I am going to make sure that I also go and hang out with them. And sometimes that was midnight, sometimes it was 1 a.m, whatever. But I just felt like I'm going to designate that time. And that wasn't the only time, but I'm going to do that because it's so important, and we really leverage that. So that was one of my best ideas, is to say, when youth group's over, I'm gonna stay and hang out with my youth leaders as long as I can, So how about you guys? Either a best idea or a worst idea?
Jordan, go ahead.
So one of the best things we've done is similar to you, Jared. Like, we just created opportunities to do things fun with our team. Like, when I first started, I just really felt like all the time with my team was so, it had to be serious all the time. We had to be focused on this. We had to be in. And when I made a big shift where it was like, let's just do some fun things together. And we've had game nights and just had them over and just, again, kind of what Mark was saying, it really is so valuable. And they have become our closest friends. And we have them over, making them food and having them play with our kids and having them do life with us is just some of the best things that we've done. I just really enjoy, even like playing video games with some of the guys on the team, and, just doing life together is some of the best things that we've done. And just maybe the worst thing we did, we went out for sushi once after, and we were like basically just doing a bunch of like, hey, you won't eat this. If you do, I'll give money to Speed the Light, whatever. And this one guy, his name is Ben. He's a Marine, and he has since moved on because he got orders to go to North Carolina. But we just piled up like this huge pile of wasabi, and we were like, dude, if you eat that, we will give $100 to Speed the Light right now. $100 to Speed the Light. And he put that, dude, it was like an ice cream scoop full of wasabi. He put the whole thing in his mouth.
Wow.
And ate it for Speed the Light. So I had to pay up. So that was kind of a bummer. But it's good stuff.
Lesson learned. Don't ever challenge a Marine to anything.
Yeah, right.
to anything. It was awesome.
Well, my best idea is my worst idea.
Ooh.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll give since you guys give best ideas, I'll give a worst idea and then twist it to how you're supposed to make it your best idea. The worst idea you could do is be slow to address conflict, or to avoid conflict altogether with your staff members, or not address an issue hoping that it will resolve itself without any interaction.
That's good.
The worst thing you can do for your team, for your staff, is be slow to respond. And the reality is the only way you can respond quickly is to have that kind of relationship with your staff.
Yep.
If there's an issue, deal with it immediately. Don't let your lead pastor be the first one to address an issue with you. If another leader is addressing one of your staff members before you do, then you've got a major blind spot, or you are avoiding conflict. First of all, you, in theory, should be able to handle it 10 times better than another leader that doesn't have the same type of relationship that you do. It's a teachable moment. It's a learning moment. You're going to have to sometimes make some really difficult decisions with your team and with your leaders. But I can assure you, if you're willing to have difficult conversations with your leaders, if you're willing to confront situations and step into conflict, the result will be 100 times better than hoping that it disappears or not ever addressing it or allowing somebody else to address it for you.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. Hopefully you've benefited as well if you're listening, and we've got a bunch more. You can check out all our videos and past conversations. We hope it's a benefit to you, and that's why we created Better Student Ministries, is to give you a resource to help train and equip your leaders. So it's not the only thing you should do, but it's definitely a part of what you should be doing. So feel free to send these podcasts on to your leaders, send our videos on to your leaders, use it as part of your team training.
Yep.
We appreciate you guys. Hope it's a blessing. Jordan, thanks so much for being with us, man. We'll look forward to having you back on another time.
Thanks so much for having me, man. Have a great time.
All right, awesome. This is Better Student Ministry Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Better Student Ministry Podcast. If you enjoyed today's content, be sure to check out our 10-minute training videos and discussion guide for you and your team. You can find those on YouTube and Facebook by searching Better Student Ministry. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what topics you would like covered. You can also email us at betterstudentministry@gmail.com.